Welcome back. AC lesson number 10, refrigerant leak detection, how to find Freon leaks. We went over 2 of the 6 methods for leak detection. We covered the visual inspection and the limitations when looking for the stain. We went over the liquid refrigerant detector / bubbles and some of its limitations. We left off with the electronic leak detector called the halogen leak detector. What color do you like? I'm going to make you wait till the end to provide more information about this method. You will understand why later. Let's go on to what I think is the best method of detection, the UV dye, the ultraviolet dye. There, that lime green color, the ultraviolet light. It's absolutely the best method of detection. Different ways to get the UV dye into the system. But, you know there's always some buts. First, you have to understand what is so important about using the dye. The secret to success is the blank. Anybody can fill in the blank? Anybody have an idea what is so important when using the dye? The answer is the oil, the refrigeration oil. That subject's not going away. In fact, it's a huge lesson coming at you soon. The same oil that we use to lubricate the compressor that circulates through the entire system is an essential part of the dye. The UV dye works 1,000% better with the oil. In fact, the UV dye by itself doesn't work very well at all. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about. Different ways to get the UV dye into the system. Some oils come with dye. Some Freons come with dye. And of course, the dye comes by itself. On the left, there's some refrigeration oil that does not have the UV dye. In the center, we have oil that comes with the dye ready to go. On the left, we have refrigerant that has the dye in it. And on the bottom, we have the dye little bottles. In fact, most late model, that means the latest thing out, new, most vehicles come with dye from the factory. So how are we going to get the dye into the system? Well, there are several answers. I like cost effective. What does that mean? The cheapest way to do it. The cheapest way is to buy the plain oil without the dye, buy the dye by itself, and then mix the two together. There's the oil. It does not have the dye. There's the dye. It does not have the oil. They need each other. That little bottle is enough to spike 3 8-ounce bottles. You don't use that whole little bottle on 1 8-ounce container. You can pay a little bit more for the premix if you can save money by mixing it yourself. Okay, how are we going to get the dye and the oil into the system? I like simple. No fancy expensive equipment, no special oil injectors. You just blank it in. Can you fill in the blank? You just pour it in. But this requires that the system be empty. No, I'm not telling you to remove the compressor. What I'm telling you is you can pour it into the suction hose. If you can get to a suction line, which you usually can, you can disconnect it. Of course, the system has to be empty of refrigerant, and either you pour it right in or you use a squirt can to get the oil in. Important question. How much oil should we add? Well, of course, a few answers. Each vehicle requires a different amount. Smaller vehicles require less, larger vehicles require more, and medium vehicles require medium. General rule of thumb. I made this up. It works. Half of system capacity plus 2. Well, what does system capacity mean? The total amount required for that vehicle. Specifications for each vehicle. I'll show you when we get to the shop how to look up information about how much Freon, how much oil, what the pressures are, etc. For example, if a vehicle calls for 6 ounces of oil, half of 6 is 3, 3 plus 2 is 5, 5 is how much you're going to add. You're not going to add all of system capacity, but you're going to be generous with it. This is an example of a general rule of thumb that I have come up with over the years. How much for a larger vehicle with a dual system? An SUV with a unit in the front and a unit in the back uses more Freon, uses more oil, has 2 evaporators, 2 liquid lines, 2 suction lines. How much oil if the system capacity calls for 12? Can you figure it out? Half of 12 is 6 plus 2 is 8. 8 ounces, that's how much you're going to put. Another way to get the oil into the system is by using an oil injector. This is an oil injector. We have them there at the college. The bigger, the better. On the left, that particular oil injector is capable of holding and injecting 2 ounces of oil at a time, while the one on the right, I'm not even sure if that's a whole ounce. The bigger, the better. This can be done on a system that still has refrigerant in it. Can you figure out how it works? We fill the oil injector with 2 ounces. We connect it to the system. We turn the injector clockwise. We force the oil into the system. This can be done while the system still has refrigerant. The first method had to have an empty system for you to pour it in. Now, there are other types of injectors. The one on the left, can you figure it out? It's going to need a can of pressurized refrigerant to force the oil in. I don't like this one because the injector only holds 1 ounce of oil and you have to do it over and over and over. There is an old school kind of injector. It uses the red pressure to force the oil through the low side. I might show you an example of that. My favorite is the easiest one to use. The students over the years have learned to use this one. This one is simple. Big, fancy, expensive equipment. We have at the college a couple of just like this. And you see the red arrow is pointing to this plastic cylinder. Plastic gives it away. They call it injection, but the truth is it does not force the oil in. It sucks it up after the end of an evacuation vacuum. Well, heck, if you're going to do that, let's do it old school. This is how I used to do it in the driveway without no big fancy equipment. After a vacuum, before I shoot the Freon, I put the yellow hose into the oil container, open the blue hand wheel, and the vacuum that has been created in the system will draw the oil into the vehicle. Okay, let's go on. You have the oil and the UV dye in the system. Now what? You basically undercharge the system. What does undercharge mean? Less than full. You don't want to fill it up because it's kind of wasting the Freon. Do not fill up the system at this time. Add just enough Freon to cool the suction hose. You have 2 choices now. The shop keeps the vehicle for a couple of days, or you let the customer take the vehicle and use the AC. There's a little problem when using the UV dye. It takes a while for the dye to show up. Well, how long? Well, it depends on the size of the leak. If you have a medium leak, it'll show up in a day or so. If you have a small leak, it may take a week or longer. The UV dye is the best method of detection, but it doesn't work instantly. It takes a while. That's the only limitation to the UV dye, other than knowing to put enough oil with it. It takes a while for it to work. Boy, but when it works, it's jumping out at you. You've seen these images, leaks, leaks, and more leaks. The UV dye, in my opinion, is absolutely the best method. Yes, on the top, normal view under standard lighting. Leakage revealed with the black light. Some of the images that you've seen, right, do not show the black light. But yes, the UV light is part of a kit. There we have the kit, and here's a little better one. But those oil injectors I don't like, so I've substituted the type that I like. I like this injector for a couple of reasons. One, it holds up to 2 ounces of oil instead of just one, and we're usually putting 4 or 5 or 6 ounces of oil. So there's the injector. Over here now, the red arrow is pointing to the black light, the UV light. And what's this? This is more than just eye protection. Yes, the yellow glasses enhance the ability of the dye. Where are they? The glasses. Yes, if the leak is very small, it may not show by the naked eye. You have to use the UV light in order to see it. I'm proud of that picture. I'm very generous with the oil. I've learned over the years to not be bashful. By the time I finish looking for a leak, it's not unusual. It's dripping on the floor. What's leaking here? Well, the compressor. Well, what part of the compressor? Some of the seals. These seals have become hardened. There's body seals, case seals, shaft seals. The seals go around the body of the compressor. The next method of detection, 3 down and 3 to go. We've done the visual, looking for the stain. We've done the bubbles, like a probe. We're learning to use the UV dye. KISS. Keep it simple, silly. You know I'm not going to say that other word. Guess what the next method of detection is for a big leak? A big leak. Can you guess? What is the next method? You hear it. Yes, I'm going to count it because it works. When you have the system pressurized and you look at the needle and the needle is moving, and if you pay attention, you will hear the hissing. Well, it's over here, guys. Let's go feel around. That's what you're going to do next. First, you hear, well, it's coming from around over here. Then you put your hand up there, what I think is right about here. Then you finish it off with the liquid refrigerant detector to find the leak. All of these count. There's 6 methods of detection. The visual, looking for the residue. The bubbles, looking for the bubbles. Everything has limitations. The UV dye is an excellent method. You hear it, you feel it. What's left? What's left? Who knows? Well, this thing is left. The halogen leak detector. What color do you like? Blues for boys. I'm going to make you wait. Wait again? I wonder why I'm making you wait again. Anybody have an idea why I'm making you wait? Is it that complicated? No. You will see why next time. The halogen electronic leak detector, nicknamed the sniffer or the beeper. The next lesson. The end. Dun, dun.